70%. That is the exact amount of the Gaza Strip that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has just ordered his military to take over. This breaking announcement has shocked international mediators and threatens to completely destroy the fragile ceasefire that was holding the region together. According to a detailed report published by the Guardian newspaper, this new directive is a direct violation of the peace deal brokered by the United States.
אנחנו בתהליך שהכוח שלנו, אנחנו יכולים למנף את הכוח שלנו עם הרבה כיוונים. תצטרך עוד למחוץ את חיזבאללה, אנחנו כרגע לופתים את חמאס, כן? אנחנו עכשיו ב-60% משטח הרצועה, אתם יודעים את זה. היינו ב-50, עברנו ל-60, הדירקטיבה שלי היא לעבור תלכו לפי הסדר. קודם כל 70, בואו נתחיל בזה. לופתים אותם מכל עבר, אנחנו נטפל בשאריות. אבל הדבר החשוב ביותר הוא להמשיך למנף את הכוח שלנו, להגדיל אותו, ויש עוד עבודה. עכשיו, מה שקורה כרגע, אנחנו באמת בשינוי עולמי, אין ספק בזה.
To understand how serious this is, we have to look at what Netanyahu said himself. Speaking directly to a crowd at a conference in a West Bank settlement in the Jordan Valley, the Israeli Prime Minister laid out his new territorial goals. He explicitly stated, quote, "We are currently squeezing Hamas. We now control 60% of the territory in the Strip. You know, we were at 50, we moved to 60. My directive is to move to 70%. End quote. This sudden move has sparked panic on the ground and caused a major diplomatic crisis between Israel, the United States, and the United Nations. To fully understand what is happening, we need to look back at the original peace framework that was supposed to prevent this exact situation. In October, a major ceasefire agreement was signed under a 20-point peace plan created by the administration of United States President Donald Trump. According to reports from international news agencies like France 24, this deal established a strict dividing boundary on the map known as the temporary yellow line. Under the specific terms of that agreement, the Israeli army was required to pull back its forces to a line that gave Israel direct control over 53% of the Gaza Strip. The remaining 47% of the land was supposed to be left as a safe zone for civilians and humanitarian aid, with the goal of eventually handing over control to local groups. However, over the past few weeks, independent monitoring groups have watched the Israeli military steadily advance its positions far beyond that yellow line, moving deep into the areas meant for civilians. This major shift has led to deep concern among top foreign policy experts. According to The Guardian, Mohammed Shahada, a visiting fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations, explained the true meaning behind this territorial expansion. Shahada stated, quote, "Netanyahu is now declaring the whole Trump deal, the framework for Gaza, to be null and void. That is what it means in a nutshell. There is no other way to spell it out." End quote. By pushing the military lines forward to claim 70% of the land, the Israeli government is effectively tearing up the international agreements it previously signed. This has left diplomatic teams in Washington and across Europe scrambling to figure out how to save the peace process before the entire region spirals back into full-scale conflict. Furthermore, even within the country's own system, there appears to be a clear gap between the politicians making the announcements and the military forces on the ground. When journalists tried to get clarification on this major territorial change, the army leadership refused to provide details. According to reports from international correspondents, an official military spokesperson explicitly referred all requests for comment on the 70% threat directly to the political leadership, refusing to explain how the troops would physically enforce these new borders without breaking the ongoing truce. While the politicians argue over the maps, the situation on the ground for everyday citizens is becoming unlivable. The Gaza Strip is already one of the most crowded places on Earth, with over 2 million people trapped inside its borders. According to official briefings from the United Nations humanitarian agencies, the expansion of the military zone means that the entire civilian population is being squeezed into an impossibly small area. International researchers note that if the military successfully takes 70% of the territory, more than 2 million Palestinians will be forced to survive in less than 1/3 of their original land. Relief workers on the ground warn that this will cause a total collapse of basic infrastructure, as there is simply not enough physical space for tents, clean water systems, medical clinics, or aid distribution centers. The panic among local residents is already visible. According to tracking data collected by the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, local anti-Hamas militias backed by the military have been moving into residential neighborhoods near the old yellow line. Nasser Kaddour, a lead researcher at the Monitoring Project, reported that these groups are forcing civilians to flee their homes. Kaddour stated, quote, "We have seen that the militias are not only attacking Hamas, but also they are contributing to pushing the residents who are living close to their line further to the west." End quote. Eyewitnesses reported that families are packing whatever furniture and belongings they can carry onto trucks and carts, leaving whole neighborhoods completely empty as people flee in terror from the advancing military front. At the exact same time that this military push is happening, Israel has also triggered a massive diplomatic breakdown with the United Nations. According to official statements published by China Daily, Israel's UN Ambassador Danny Danon announced that his country is cutting off all communication with the top leader of the United Nations. Writing publicly on the social media platform X, Ambassador Danon stated, quote, "We are done with this Secretary-General," end quote. He confirmed that Israel will have no further contact with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. This extreme diplomatic shutdown happened after the United Nations officially placed Israel on its global blacklist alongside Hamas and other armed groups, following a formal UN report containing serious accusations of sexual violence in conflict zones. This total collapse of relations with the United Nations makes the delivery of humanitarian aid almost impossible. The United Nations is the primary organization responsible for bringing food, medicine, and clean water into the Gaza Strip. By cutting ties with the UN leadership, the Israeli government has created a massive administrative barrier for aid groups. According to independent reports from regional news agencies, including the Tasnim news agency, international observers are deeply worried that this political fight will stop what little aid is currently entering the Strip. Hamas leadership has responded to the situation by accusing Israel of quietly ruining the truce from the inside, stating that they were ready to discuss disarming their fighters once Israel fulfilled its promise to withdraw to the original Yellow Line. This local crisis is also deeply affecting the broader foreign policy goals of the United States. The Trump administration has spent months trying to finalize a massive regional peace deal that would protect global trade routes and stabilize international shipping. United States Vice President JD Vance recently commented on these delicate talks, stating that the administration is, quote, "not there yet," end quote, on a final agreement. Experts warn that Netanyahu's sudden move to seize 70% of Gaza makes a broader regional agreement much harder to achieve. Many international analysts believe that the Israeli Prime Minister is making these aggressive military moves to protect his own political survival, as he faces a tough election in the next few months and intense pressure from his domestic political allies. Ultimately, the situation in the Middle East has reached a major turning point. The lines on the map are changing rapidly, and tactical actions on the ground are completely ignoring the peace plans written by international leaders. With the order for 70% military control already being carried out, the chances of returning to a stable ceasefire are dropping every single day. The world is now watching to see if intervention from Washington can force a pause, or if these new borders will become a permanent, devastating reality for the millions of people living in the region. Reporting on the facts as they happen, this is the current state of global security.